But I know at South Lake Carroll, for 27 years when I was a head football coach and athletic director, that every year in August, I would take my varsity football team in a room, and I might have 50 kids, 70 kids, whatever. But on Monday of our last week before our first game, in that room with just me and none of our other coaches, those kids made a commitment to each other, and they made a commitment to themselves. But the point is this: they made a commitment to each other as to how much they meant to one another. And I would ask those kids one very simple question in that locker room. And sometimes we were in there for 30 minutes. Sometimes we were in there for an hour. Sometimes I was in there 4 hours or 6 hours. But the point is this: I'd ask them one question. How many of you want to win a state championship? And every kid in that room would hold their hand up, because it's very easy to hold your hand up. And then I'd talk to them about, this is what's got to happen, and this is the commitment that we got to do. We're not going to win a state championship because we're bigger, faster, or stronger. You don't win state championships with athletes that are bigger, faster, and stronger. You win state championships with kids that believe in themselves, believe in each other, and believe in the program. You don't become an executive director with this company because you say you want to be an executive director. You get to be an executive director because you make that commitment to yourself. And you know that it's going to be a tough road, and you know that you're going to get told no. You know that you're going to get knocked down. But there's no sin in getting knocked down. The sin is in not getting up when you get knocked down. And you don't win with great athletes. You don't win in this business with great network marketing people. You win with ordinary people just like us. People that won't quit. People that are going to stay after it. Understand that. We all go through that. And you've got to believe in yourself. Several years ago, my life has been in athletics. And I have a lot of kids that are very important to me. And a lot of those kids that went through our program came into our program as young boys. And they went out of our program as young men. Yeah, and we won a lot of games and won a lot of state championships. But that's not what's important. What's important is how those young men, what they became, and how that changed their life. And that's what can happen to you right here, as long as you never quit. And a lot of you probably have heard of Chase Daniels, one of our quarterback at Missouri, now with the New Orleans Saints. A lot of you have heard of the kid that's at Alabama, McLemore, was one of our quarterbacks. Padron at SMU, Riley Dodd, and so on, Chase Wasson. We've had some great quarterbacks, but nobody in this room has heard of a kid named Will. And probably the best, greatest quarterback we've ever had at South Lake is a young man named Will. And several years ago, when Will was a 7th grader, the coaches came to me and they said, "Coach, we got a little kid down here at the junior high. He weighs about 52 pounds. He's going to get hurt." I said, "Well, let me talk to him. I'll see if he wants to be a manager." And I went down to the junior high and I sat down with Will. I said, "Will, son, I want you to be our manager. I want you to help us. I want you to be part of our program, but you'll never play for Carroll High School." He said, "Coach, I don't want to be a manager. I want to play." And I looked at Will and I said, "Will, I want you to be a manager." He said, "Coach, I don't want to be a manager." Anyway, make a long story short, as a 7th grader, he never stepped on the field but maybe 2 or 3 times. He played on the B team. He wanted to be a quarterback. We had about 5 or 6 quarterbacks, but he never quit. Went into the 8th grade year. Will played about 5 or 6 games as a backup. He was about the 4th team quarterback. Played very little. Coming into his freshman year, when we put the freshmen up on the board in the coach's office, coaches put Will up there. I said, "Man," and one of the coaches said, "Coach, he'll never play quarterback for us." We had 6 quarterbacks listed. I said, okay, I'm going to call him in. I'm going to talk to him this summer. And I called Will. I said, Will, I want to move you to receiver. You may play receiver for us. He said, Coach, I don't want to play receiver. I want to play quarterback. I said, Will, I'm the coach. I'll decide, where. And the kid looked at me and he said, Coach, I want to be a quarterback. And I want to play quarterback. And for some reason, I looked at that kid and I said, Will, you can stay at quarterback, but you'll never play. And Will, freshman year was a 5th quarterback. Took about 2 snaps that year. Sophomore year on the JV was a backup, was a 3rd quarterback. Played very little, weighed 135 pounds. Going into the junior year, his mother wanted to come talk to me. I met with his mother in June. His mom sat in my office and she said, Coach, Will's dad wants him to quit football. I want him to quit football. His brothers want him to quit football. But Will won't quit. But she said, Coach, I want you to understand something. Will is a visual learner. And I said, really? And at that time, I didn't know what a visual learner was, okay? But I said, really? And she said, Coach, he has a learning disability. And I said, okay. So I took our offensive coordinator and I said, Coach, take him out to the practice field. We'll out there and walk him through, our option reads and things like that. And so, not really thinking it'd ever change anything, but to satisfy that mama, I felt it was a good thing for me to do at that time. But what happened is this. As we went through 2-a-days and we went through all that summer work, the week before our first game, his junior year, I walked in that dressing room on Monday and I announced to that varsity football team in that team meeting that Will would start at quarterback for Carroll. And the point is this. Will never lost a high school football game in 2 years. He was 32-0. He was 16-0 his junior year, 16-0 his senior year. He won 2 state championships. Dave Campbell with Texas Football Magazine came to our athletic banquet and presented him the Outstanding Football Player in the State of Texas award. Weighed 140-something pounds. The point in this whole story is this, and I want you to understand this. When I called Will in my office his sophomore year and tried to move him to receiver again, and Will sat there in that office, and I looked at him, and I said, Will, your chances of ever playing for us are slim and none. And that kid looked at me and he said, Coach, I'll take slim. And I said, okay. And he left, and I never thought any more about it. And what that kid accomplished is that senior year, when I called those kids in to talk to them about what they were going to do about college and where they wanted to go and all that, and when I finally met with Will, and I got up and I hugged Will and we talked and all that, I said, Will, do you want to walk on? He said, Coach, there's nobody going to offer me anything. Number one, I weigh 140 pounds or whatever it was and all that. And he said, no. He said, Coach, I don't want to play in college. He said, I have accomplished, what I really wanted to and what I wanted to in my heart. And that was to play at Carroll. And then, as Will started out of my office, he kind of looked back at me. And he kind of had a little smirk on his face. And he looked at me and he said, Coach, slim and none, huh? And he went on out the door. And I said, Mantooth, get out of here. Will, get out of here. And he went on out. But the point I want to make to you is this. There's a lot of Wills sitting in here, and there's a lot of Wills watching this. And as long as you never quit in this business, and you realize that somebody's going to say to you, your chances are slim and none. You take slim because you're one person away from making a lot of money and from changing your life. And you got to fail in this business. Understand that. Successful people are going to fail.